Yo, what's going on, guys? It is UFC 320 fight week, and it's going down. A big rematch in the light heavyweight division. Alex Poatan Pereira looking to get back his light heavyweight title. To do so, he'll have to beat Magomed Ankalaev, the same man that took the belt from him. On the other part of the docket, we got a bantamweight title fight as well going down. Merab Dvalishvili, the New York machine. New York runs bantamweight. I said it for how long? But will we still run it after this weekend? Another American challenger stepping up, Cory Sandhagen. He's been around this title level for a long time. Can he finally break through? We will get our answer on Saturday night. But in the meantime, we got a lot of great fights to break down, and you know that we can't go it alone on Bets and Banter. So without further ado, we got my brother from another, Wizz MMA. How you feeling, my man?
We're back. We're so back. I'm feeling good. We have the coffee. Took a long nap. Woke up about an hour and a half ago. And I'm ready to break down some UFC 320. I just want to say one thing after I take the sip. I want to say one thing. I demand respect. I demand some freaking respect. He took him to the Magniverse. He cashed a plus 400 slip. Let's go.
That's
Honestly,
awesome.
look, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. If the ref didn't intervene and say that, oh no, the fight didn't end, the round ended, I think that fight would have been ruled a stoppage win for Jake Matthews 9 times out of 10. I think that's what deserved to happen. I think they should have reviewed the call. I don't know what kind of athletic commission doesn't review the replay of the ref stopping the fight clearly 2 or 3 seconds before the round ended. So it kind of was bizarre, and I told myself instantly when that happened, because I had Matthews in the parlay, even though on the show I called Magny. It's just inevitable. When I thought of the grappling, I had to retape it, and it showed in the first round. But when you have that massive adrenaline dump going from thinking you won the fight, you clearly saw Jake Matthews run to his corner and he's celebrating and he's, elated. He thought he won. And then going from that to, oh no, you have to go back and continue in the second round, deal with some adversity. And Neil Magny thought he lost the fight, going from, oh, I thought I lost the fight to I still have a chance. You have the momentum in your favor. You have the you really have everything going for you. So I just think it was a bad spell of luck for Jake Matthews, unfortunately. But we'll go ahead and see if Magny can continue to get these wins, man. But Matthews will be back. I think Matthews is someone to look out for. He's on the come up. He's been performing really well and making a lot of improvements.
Dude, you know what? It's still the same old Jake Matthews at the end of the day because he finds a way to
Yeah.
lose. Like, he's clearly the better guy. But like a lot of, Neil Magny opponents before, doesn't matter who's the better guy, right? It matters who's better on the night. Neil Magny finds a way to be better on the night than a lot of guys. And he came back to win. He did his job. I had the fight not to go small because I was like, man, Jake Matthews ITD, it's like plus 140 or something. I was like, just take, the fight not to go minus 110. I was like, I'd rather give away that 40 cents of equity for a Magny finish. And then in round one, I'm like, wait, they stopped the fight. You can't take that back. Like, you stopped it. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching, dude. And, bad refereeing. I
Yeah.
honestly think it was clear after the fact that, like, Magny wasn't out, but the referee clearly stopped it. So it was a horrible, F up. But what do we have? We got 14 more opportunities to see how they fuck it up this week. Let's find out, my man. Starting with the first one of the night, we got Veronica Hardy. She's taking on Brogan Walker at 125 pounds. I'll start us off here, man, because I did a little bit of looking into this fight. I was like, what is the, reason to not, believe Veronica Hardy's just going to steamroller here? I've never been high on Brogan Walker. She's been out for a long time. Like, there's a lot of things working against her. She did just get her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So if you're ever looking for like, hey, maybe there's one sign of hope for Brogan Walker, that's that. But otherwise, I believe she's coming off a knee surgery as well. So some things to, Brogan Walker putting in the time on the mats, finally seeing that pay off. God bless her for it. But then things not to like, being out for a long time, having no real UFC level wins, since her amateur, or excuse me, since her amateur days, since her regional days. Like, she has a couple decent wins on her ledger, but none in the UFC, none since she's been a part of this level. And Veronica Hardy on the other side, her loss recently was against more a very good big fighter. Somebody that's probably going to make some waves in this division. Certainly looked a lot bigger than Veronica Hardy. And in this fight, they look like they're roughly the same size. So I think Veronica Hardy's the better striker here. I think that the grappling, maybe Brogan Walker could have an interesting new sweep that she's learned, or, throws up an armbar or something from the bottom. But, aside from that, I really just don't see much, that she's going to have to offer here. Her takedown defense has been notably bad throughout her UFC career. And Veronica Hardy does seem like she's been getting better across all skill sets in the last few years. Shout out to Dan Hardy for that. I think that he's a smart guy, a good game planner as well. So I think that they'll understand the assignment here, know what they have to do. But Brogan Walker is probably going to offer some resistance here. I wanted to talk myself into Veronica Hardy ITD or something like this. And, maybe it hits. I just didn't see enough evidence here that I should get behind that. Walker has been finished before by, Miller, which is something where you're like, oh, kind of a sketchy looking loss there. So maybe you look at the Hardy TKO prop. I think a lot of people will lean towards the sub. Brogan Walker's a black belt, didn't get subbed by some girls that are, arguably a little bit higher level or more aggressive on the ground. So I think that's something interesting to look at here in terms of a pivot play on Veronica Hardy. Maybe the KO prop at a huge plus money number is something I would consider here, and probably late as well. I don't think it would come early. I think she would kind of need to work on her a little bit, but it's one of those double-edged swords because Hardy, her cardio is like the one thing that kind of lets her down, even in this later stage of her career. So I'll kick it over to you, my brother. How do you feel about this first fight of the night? Any reason to get involved on the big dog here?
Absolutely not. Uh, Veronica Hardy is just, I want to say, 2 levels above Brogan Walker, with all due respect. Brogan Walker is someone who I feel has a lot of defensive liabilities when it comes to the grappling and the wrestling department. And I think in the striking, Veronica Hardy is just going to be way too fast, and her footwork is going to be way too good for anything that Brogan Walker throws and anything that she offers. I think that wherever this fight goes, she'll have her covered. But more often than not, I think Hardy gets the submission, as you mentioned. The skill gap on the mat is a little bit higher than the skill gap on the feet, but I think she can piece her up on the feet as well. So just tough one to call, and I'm not going to lay a minus 600 on women's MMA, unfortunately, just because we've seen what that does to the mental sometimes.
Yeah, and I must say the stats kind of pretty considerably point towards the Hardy side. She has not only a larger sample size, but a much better sample size as well. So let's see if at 36 years old, Brogan Walker can offer a career best product, but I think we need to see more evidence for that. Okay, next up, my man. We've got a little bit of a renewed Ramiz Brahimaj, right? Like, he's been looking a little bit better lately, a little bit more confidence, certainly showing that inside the octagon. He's always been known as a guy who can go out there and get the early finish, but maybe those extended fights have been his problem. On the Vanderford side, big guy, having a lot of success since he came to the UFC. We'll have you start us off on this one, Wiz. How do you feel about this welterweight matchup? Two guys that are looking to, kind of move forward, offer their name up as like, hey, I'm on a win streak. I'm a guy who deserves big opportunities. And, for Ramiz, I don't think a lot of people thought he'd be in this kind of position to take that step forward. And for Vanderford, people didn't expect him to be in the UFC. So, interesting matchup here.
Yeah, I personally think that this line is a little bit too wide. Austin Vanderford, yeah, I do believe that he is the more skilled fighter in this fight, but not by that much. I don't think that a minus 250 plus number is valid on Austin Vanderford, especially at 35 years old, going into 36. The skills he offers is, a good, strong offensive takedown game on the feet, serviceable striking game, can be hit, but he's tough. Now, Ramiz Brahimaj is someone that a lot of people kind of wrote off a couple of years ago. and he comes out, gets 2 wins in a row now against Billy Ray Goff and Mickey Gall, once by knockout and one by submission, and he looks really good. Now, I have, on the record, gone down to be a hater of Brahimaj in the past, just due to how flaky he showed to be earlier in his UFC career. But I think uh, Valley Flow has him doing some good work, and he's making a lot of improvements. And I think he can come out here and maybe hurt Austin Vanderford on the feet. I think he's going to be the faster striker. I do believe that Vanderford's going to end up taking him down at some point, and it's a matter of if Brahimaj can amount some submission attempts or get back to his feet, defend the takedowns, and tire out Vanderford and knock him out while they're on the feet. Otherwise, I think Vanderford's going to be able to take him down, get some control, and win this fight. Personally, I would much rather play the dog here, and I'm very close to a bet on Brahimaj here. So give me Ramiz.
Fair play, my man. When I look at this fight, I feel like I have to do a little bit more tape on the Vanderford side. Admittedly, like I'm just not as familiar with a lot of his work outside the UFC. I watched it for his initial, UFC fights, but when I looked at Ramiz, I've always been a little skeptical of Ramiz in terms of cardio. That Themba Garimbo fight certainly is one that's like kind of aged pretty badly in this sample. Not that Themba's a bad fighter. I've always talked about he was one of my favorite guys before it was cool, right? And then he kind of became mainstream. So, I had to back away a tiny bit, right? I like my unknown gems, but you look at a guy like Ramiz and he does have a dangerous guillotine. When I look at his skills coming into this fight, he does have some power in the early going. And I think those are things that maybe could trouble Vanderford. But I just think beyond that, Vanderford has a better process for winning fights over the course of 15 minutes. So I understand why he's favored to win the fight. But I would rather be looking for a live entry on Vanderford probably after 3 minutes, after 4 minutes, after a round. And if he comes out and dominates in the first round and he goes to minus 800, it's like, okay, I just leave this one alone, right? But if he comes out and he's having a little bit of a tough time getting to his takedowns, but he's making the guy work. He's getting some cage push. He's chipping away with some body shots or something, knees to the body. I think that would be how Vanderford wins this fight and takes over down the stretch. So, we kind of saw against Veretennikov, he was just consistent, sticking to his process, going for the takedowns, getting on top, doing damage on top. And I think that that's a sound way to win fights. So until he meets, a level of resistance where the takedowns aren't going to work, I think that that's where you'd look to fade Vanderford more often than not. And I just don't really see him getting taken down. In this fight, I think he's probably likely to get on top of Ramiz. And if Ramiz does not get that early submission, I think it's going to be a little bit harder for him. But, Ramiz has been on the record as saying like, Saif Saud was ruining my career and like all these things. And, basically said he ruined Jeff Neal's career and stuff. So Ramiz has been, kind of distancing himself and getting some different training looks. And I think that's been big for his career resurgence. But this is another level, to some of the guys he's been beating. So interesting fight, though. And I will say he checks one system for me, which is that he's the younger guy with more experience, not only at the UFC level, but as a professional as well. So a couple interesting things there for the big underdog. And if Wizz is looking at it, then I'm going to have to take this one a little closer. All right, guys. Next up, we got one of my favorite guys in the UFC, man. Division III wrestling, stand up, Punahele Soriano, Wartburg College. This guy really knows how to wrestle. And, when I look at him against Veretennikov, we just talked about, Veretennikov kind of getting punked in that Vanderford fight. And what is Vanderford? A guy who moonlights in the middleweight division, right? A guy who's big body at 170. And Punahele, same exact thing, right? Like he was a guy who fought at 185. We just saw Francisco Prado, a guy who fought at 155, take this guy down a number of times, right? A guy who's not a natural wrestler, a guy who's not a natural welterweight. Yeah, I think Punahele is going to take this guy down if he wants to. And I think that on the feet, the thing I don't like for Puna is if they're exchanging a kicking range. Puna doesn't really like those kicking exchanges. But I think that if they're exchanging in boxing range, I think Puna just hits like a truck. And I also think he's a pretty durable guy in terms of head strikes, especially. So for me, I feel like Puna, has multiple paths to winning this fight, but, the age dynamic here is that the wrestler is 32, not 35, like Vanderford, right? Vanderford and Ramiz, it's like 35, 32. The dynamic is switched, right? Puna's the younger guy. I think he's got the better process. I think he hits harder. I think that he's a little bit more durable. I mean, they're both durable guys. That's, something you got to give to Veretennikov. He's hard to put away. But that fight against Vanderford, he kind of got audited for his skills, Like Puna has gotten beat up before, but that was like a systematic audit. And, I think that Puna can do the same thing. So give me Puna to win this one and probably finish this guy. Also, I'll just say this, like I haven't done my DFS notes yet this week. I will have them out for Patreon a little bit, probably later tonight. If not tonight, then tomorrow. But looking at Puna, he's been a historic great scorer. And I wrote him up last time when he was, against Medic. Guys, I expected him to go out there and wrestle, right? Not knock him out in the first exchange, right? Like Puna is one of these guys that he's got the power to put people out, but he's also got the wrestling and the ground and pound, right? Against Baeza, he just lit him up with like 200 plus significant shots, I think it was, on the ground, like just brutalized him. So I feel like Puna, can change your life and career if he gets 10 minutes of top control time in a fight. So for me, those are the kind of things I'm looking at earlier on in his career. That wasn't the case, right? I think it was against Maximov. He spent a lot of time kind of doing the takedown defense dance and like turning his back and stuff. And I think he's been much more assertive lately. I think it's made all the difference. Give me Punahele to continue his rise in the welterweight division. I think he might even finish this guy. But it might be an accumulation kind of finish, right? 2 and 3, take this guy's wrists out over and over, keep punching him over and over, and force the ref to do something about it. Give me Puna to win this one. And the other thing I'll say is Puna hasn't submitted anybody in the UFC yet, right? Vanderford didn't submit this guy. People, I think, might, maybe not look at Puna as a guy that can submit somebody. Baez is a good grappler, right? He was a guy that was going to be really hard to put away that night. He fought very tough, like took an ass whooping like a man. I think Veretennikov might be in some compromised positions, getting hit with ground and pound, kind of start blocking off a little, and Puna could maybe go for one of those short chokes, get to a head and arm position. He did it in the LFA to Patti right before he came over to the UFC. And, again, he's been showing that ground dominance in some of these fights. I just wouldn't be surprised. That for me is something where if you're looking for a long shot on Puna, maybe look at that and the late round props. What do you think, my man?
So I'm looking something up right now, and brother, I really think that this is Puna by KO. I think this is KO 1 for Punahele Soriano. Puna, and this, maybe slight personal bias. Puna's someone that I've been into the training room with for multiple times in the past. Really good guy, one of the funniest dudes out there. And in this matchup, I just think that Puna is much more experienced. He's much more of a dog than Nikolai Veretennikov, who we've seen quit in the past and show to be or to lack durability. And Puna is someone that hits very hard. Like when he lands on you, he will hurt you. And in the past, we've seen Veretennikov really keep his hands down when he's in exchanges, and in the pocket, Punahele Soriano is going to fake you down and then come over the top with an overhand and surprise you with it. It's going to land flush every single time against Veretennikov. I don't see how it goes any other way here than KO 1. So for me, I'm really targeting KO 1 here at plus 400. And then I'm waiting for some more markets to open up. But yeah, I think this is Puna by KO. Solid parlay piece here.
All right, there you have it. We both think it's Puna. We may disagree on how he gets it done, or what the fight might look like, but overall, we both think Puna is probably going to smash
Puna.
This guy. Puna for Wartburg College, baby. Shout out. D3 wrestlers, stand up. All right, next
Liam,
up,
I'm going to give you the honors. This is all you.
All right, my brother. Listen, I'm going to do more tape study on Wicklax, but the bottom line is this. I'm never betting against Patchy Mix. You have to understand certain biases in your life, right? I did tell people when he was fighting Mario Bautista, I was like, listen up, guys. Like, I love Patchy, but you'd want to get plus money in this kind of fight, right? To bet on a guy like Patchy, just because he has to go out there and show it at this level against a guy like this. By the way, how many guys have lost their UFC debut that are good fighters? It's hard to go out there and make a good debut. It's hard to go out there and make that first impression. And Patchy, in my humble opinion, put a lot of pressure on himself by talking a little too much shit. Somebody probably got in his ear, a manager, a PR guy. Hey, man, you got to go out there and sell yourself. You got to go out there and say all this stuff. And, he went out there and ran a little bit too much. And, at the end of the day, Bautista, it's a really hard fight. Who else wants to fight Bautista, guys? Like, look at who Bautista's beating. Look at his record in the UFC. So when you look at how the UFC matches guys up that come in as champions from other organizations, they want to make things clear like, hey, there's those ones and then there's this one, right? Eddie Alvarez, not 3 fights later, was fighting for a UFC title belt and he won it, right? So when you look at guys can come in, they can lose, and they could still be really good fighters. And I think that Patchy Mix is a really good fighter. But I also think, he's a guy that's got a kind of unique set of skills, right? And against Bautista, that unique set of skills was not really well equipped to go out there and get the job done, right? I expected more takedown attempts from him because I thought he would understand how imperative it was to create a grappling exchange. I thought that he would understand, like, hey, if I can get 1, 2, 3, 4 grappling exchanges, maybe I can find my patented guillotine choke. Maybe I can get this guy out of there. And that's what makes him special. It's like he's found moments of opportunity. Gallagher's going for the guillotine, then Patchy goes for his. The difference is his is money. He gets his guillotine going and it's over. And you just see, like, that's the kind of thing that Patchy has made a career of. But did he have any opportunities against Mario? No. Were there any great frenetic exchanges to go grapple? No. He got shut down in that range. Like, that just didn't happen. So what did he have to rely on? The fact that he's tough, the fact that he's durable. He took a lot of hard shots in that fight, guys. Like, he was taking hard shots. He was coming in. He was continuing to persist. He was bleeding a little bit. And, he basically was stubborn out there. And he stubbornly took that ass whooping and didn't change that much over the course of the minutes, except to say, I got to get a little more aggressive. I got to throw a little bit more. Ultimately, I think that Patchy at his best is a grappler. Like, I think that Patchy is one of the best grapplers in the division. I just think that when you have a fight with no grappling, Patchy's going to look like a more average guy, and people were saying, like, this guy's worse than CM Punk. I saw that on Twitter, bro. Like, people were saying this guy's the worst fighter in UFC history. And all of that is not true, right? Like, I'll just tell you guys, that's not true. But the other thing I will note is Patchy's put together 22 fights. He's 32 years of age, right? He's not young, but I also believe that when you look at what version of Patchy Mix you're likely to get here, when guys get offered a UFC debut, they lose rational decision-making. They take the fight against whoever. They take the fight on short notice. They set themselves up for failure because they want to get to the UFC because it means everything to them. And I think Patchy took that fight with maybe not the best preparation and also maybe not the best game plan and, got humbled there. I think you're going to get the best and most motivated version of Patchy Mix that you could possibly get coming in here because his reputation and his career is on the line. Like, he basically needs to come out here and show, I am who I said I was. I am, as good as people thought I was. And if he's not that, then he needs to show, like, hey, I'm going to give everything in the pursuit of that. So I'm a huge Patchy Mix fan. I'll always be a Patchy Mix fan. You're never going to hear me make an argument for the other guy, except to say when I believe that it was a hard fight against Mario Bautista, that at best he was looking at a pick 'em price. At best, I was like, that's at best. In this fight, I think Patchy Mix is going to go out there and find a way to finish this guy. I think at his best on the feet, he's a dangerous striker. He throws knees up the middle. He throws powerful shots. He's gotten a lot of guys' respect on the feet throughout the course of his career. He could throw calf kicks. He's also tough as shit. Even in the fights he loses, I've seen him death gassed in 5-round fight against Juan Archuleta, getting hit upside the head every which way but loose. The guy found a way to stay in the fight the whole 25 minutes, and he was still walking forward, trying to have moments of success with no gas left in the tank. So I know that Patchy Mix is a tough guy who will give everything in pursuit of victory. The 2 guys that beat him had to do it by decision. They had to do it by landing a lot of volume. And I just look at this fight and I'm like, I see an opponent in Wicklax. When I did watch his film, he's a guy that's making mistakes. He's falling out of position. He's aggressive. He's violent. He's willing to go out there and swing. I do think he might land some good shots in this fight. But I think that when they get to grappling exchanges, I think he's a guy that believes in his grappling, and I think there will be levels shown. I think Patchy is a better grappler than he is, and I think that his willingness to exchange grappling positions will be his undoing here. I think Patchy will defeat him on the mat. I think he needs one opportunity with his guillotine and he could beat this guy. So for me, Patchy Mix is the pick, but I will also say I'm biased as shit, guys. New York, stand up. Watch this guy fight in person in the King of the Cage. I believe that was back in 2017, and I knew he was special. And I made a lot of money when he was an underdog throughout his Bellator run. I say find him when they're a diamond in the rough. He now is minus 170 against Batista, minus 250 against this guy. They made it a lot harder to get involved with the Patchy Mix business, right? But when he was plus 120 against Magomed Ankalaev, I was there. When he was plus, what was it, 2XX? Plus 235, plus 245 against Kyoji Horiguchi, we were there. Now he's got to fight guys that are bigger, guys that are motivated. But now it's Wicklax, the guy who has to make that UFC debut, hard fight on a big card. Patchy just did that. Patchy just made his debut. He now got those jitters out of his system, and he's going to go out there and make a statement, in my opinion. What do you think, Wiz?
I think they kind of handpicked this matchup for Patchy Mix. Jakob Wicklax, if you watch the tape, he is a guy that's willing to mix it up in the grappling. So I think they kind of looked for someone that is going to go out there and be comfortable, or not comfortable, but willing to grapple with Patchy Mix. And Wicklax throws these leg kicks that get caught from time to time, and I think Mix can catch one of those kicks and take him down. And since he's going to be willing to stay on the mat with him, I think it's a matter of time before Patchy Mix finds a favorable submission. Maybe it's the guillotine if Wicklax is the one that's shooting on him, but I highly doubt that. I think he's going to get to the back and get a rear naked choke here within 2 rounds. I think it's as easy as that. I want to say Patchy Mix is probably the most confident favorite I have on this card. But yeah, not emphasizing like a minus 250 or minus 300 play on Patchy Mix or put him in parlays because of it. He still hasn't proven much at this level.
The New York backpack. I will just note this, guys. When you look back at a guy like Merab Dvalishvili, okay, the thing that got him signed to the UFC, the thing that got him on the map was that he went out there and knocked out Rafion Stotts, all right? Rafion Stotts has lost 3 times as a pro, and once was by decision. He's only been knocked out twice, okay? You know the other man to knock him out besides Merab Dvalishvili? It was Patchy No Love Mix because New York runs bantamweight, 135 pounds. We saw it with the triumvirate. Aljamain Sterling, Merab Dvalishvili, and Patchy Mix. Patchy Mix suffered a little bit of that comeback down to earth. Let's see if he can go out there and become the New York backpack once again and show people what time it is. I think that he can. New York boys going to teach you how to wrestle once again. Patchy Mix gets it done. Next up, my brother, we got the ladies going to war here with Macy Chiasson and Yana Santos. I believe this is a rebooked fight. These are 2 women that I think have had issues on the scale before, certainly on the Chiasson side, no doubt about that. Maybe Yana Santos has not. I want to take that back, actually. I think it was Chelsea Chandler who missed weight against her, and then Yana Santos cursed her out on the scale. So fair play to Yana. But, my man, we'll send it over to you first. How do you feel about these ladies matching up, and anything to, attack on the board for this one? I feel like I'm going to stay away from this fight with a 10-foot pole.
And next we have Daniel Santos versus Jusang Yu. Oh, this is a fight. That's what this is. But you're going to be...
It was one of the fights of all time.
It is one of the fights of all time. They're going to be fighting for 3 5-minute rounds or 5 3-minute rounds. Who knows? I'm going to be advocating for a bet on Yana Santos at, these plus 200 to plus 300 numbers if it gets there. For the sole reason that I think Macy Chiasson has shown to lack the physicality against these girls who are, a little bit more stronger. I feel like Yana Santos has that build where she's shown to be a little bit more solid. She can hold girls against the cage. She walks girls down in the striking. And I know Chiasson's going to be the taller girl in this fight, and she's going to have the reach advantage. But Santos is someone that is going to be the better striker in this matchup, and she's going to have the advantage when it comes into the clinch too. So Unless Macy takes this fight down early and often, I feel like it's going to be closer than the line indicates. But please don't take my advice. Just stay away. I'm probably not going to take that either. So for me, I'm passing with a 10-foot pole. I'm good on this.
I definitely understand the take. The thing that like just jumps off the page at me, it feels like they're gonna look like a full weight class apart here. 4-inch reach advantage for Chason. She's gonna be 5 inches taller as well. Her last weigh-in was at 144 pounds. So I just feel like she's the bigger woman at this point in their lives. And I would have to see her make weight to even know how this fight, plays out. But Chason, I do think is going to be physically stronger. I just also worry that she's going to not do enough, like kind of leave a fight that's, a 15-minute subjective type of decision. And for me, that's just not worth investing at these kind of prices. I'll bring up the price on screen just before we move off the fight. Chason, I think as an underdog, somebody you definitely want to take seriously, because of her size and those things, but hard to trust for me at a minus 185 type price tag. On the other side, though, less than 2-1 comeback on Yana Santos, who a little bit up there in age and had some bouts of inactivity. It's like I'm just good on passing on this one, guys. All right, next up, my man. This one's fascinating. I feel like this is one of the fights that's getting some attention on the prelim card. You got Daniel Santos, and he's a fun action fighter, can mix in the takedowns, has some striking on the feet as well, some power, I would say. A guy who maybe goes durability over defense, like walks forward, willing to exchange a little bit. I think it was Arce was the one that gave him the tour of the octagon when he first got to the UFC and kind of beat him up. Just showed levels there with the striking and, also was able to D up the takedown. So you could see at a certain level, maybe he just kind of doesn't have it, but you definitely saw as well that he's a guy that can go out there and even if he's having a tough early round, even if he gets dropped a little bit, he'll keep pushing, he'll keep trying to fight you. And, he'll give a hard 15 minutes if he's allowed. So I feel like you look at, his opponent, Juseng Yu, and I thought that there was a massive advantage for him on the ground against Jekka Sergi. I was like, he's just going to take this to the ground and dominate the fight from there. Instead, he goes out there and puts out maybe the knockout of the year. This is a super impressive knockout. I will definitely be retweeting that 5 times this week. Like, he's this kind of guy that there's a lot of mystery about him. They call him Zombie Junior. He's out of the same camp, 31 years of age. So you'd expect, like, guy who's probably mature right now. And then you see what he does in his UFC debut. Absolute lights out performance. Like, can't ask for much more. Did you learn a ton about him? No. But how many guys have we talked about? Talented fighters that just didn't look like themselves in their debut. And they talked about it. It's jitters. It's UFC. Guy was cool as a cucumber. Sent the guy to absolute Hades. Highlight reel, ready to run off into the crowd. And, he's got an opportunity to become a star if he can go out there and put together another performance or two like that, kind of take that step forward. So it's not going to be easy, right? Santos is going to offer him some problems, but we have to keep in mind, Santos is a guy that was competing at 135, had one fight up at 145, looked good there, but not a guy who's super seasoned for this weight class. He's given up a 4-inch reach advantage here. And if the takedowns are not coming easily, I think that, his lack of defense could be his undoing in this one. A guy who hits very hard, who's got the reach advantage, who's very composed striker, comfortable on the feet, can kind of fight coming in and going out. My gut says that Juseng Yu is the guy who's going to win this one, but I will also acknowledge, man, I just don't have a great feeling about this fight. I don't feel that strongly about it, but if you said to me, like, who wins, I'd say Juseng Yu, maybe make him minus 115. He's plus 110. So you could argue that there's value on that, right? I'll wait and see what happens with this line. I feel like the market loves Daniel Santos because he's kind of predictable to go out there and push a pace and throw hard and do those things. But I also think, like, if the market underrates something, sometimes it's that guys can go out there and get clipped in the first round before they have a chance to get their game going. And, it could also get them off their game. And I feel like Juseng Yu, I don't know that he's going to get dominated if this fight goes to the ground. Like, I feel like he's got a decent enough ground game, although I do have some open questions there. And then I feel like on the feet, he can definitely compete there as well. So for me, I just think he's probably got an honest enough chance of competing here. The thing that would worry me is his cardio and pace if he's pushed by Santos for the full 15 minutes. 60-second knockouts don't tell you that, but I just feel like Jusain Yu, for me, he's going to be my pick here hesitantly. What do you think?
You look at this fight, and you have two guys that are going to go out there and, you know, hand it to each other. Daniel Santos is someone that never backs down, and he's going to go out there and give you an honest 15 minutes every single fight. And Jusain Yu is someone that's not going to back down either. Usually goes out there and finishes his opponents fairly quickly. And when you have someone like Daniel Santos coming in and not backing down, I think this is going to be a car crash. And both guys fight to the under. So rather than playing a money line and trying to draw the line in the sand there, I would much rather play fight doesn't go to distance at plus 100, because I think both guys have opportunities to find a finish. I think Jusain Yu, although he has shown the shiny 9-0 record, this has come against not the best of competition, to say the least. And Daniel Santos is someone who's very experienced, can really show him that tour of the octagon moment. Or is it Jusain Yu that is going to take advantage of Daniel Santos's over aggressiveness and over aggressive fighting nature? So for me, I think the unders or fight doesn't go is a perfect way of getting equity on both fighters here and taking advantage of the way they fight and the way I really think this fight plays out. So for me, it's fight doesn't go as the pick.
Yeah, dude, I'm glad you brought that up because I did not realize that was the price, and I do think that that's an interesting angle here. I think both these guys are going to bring the violence, and both these guys have some power. So certainly we'll get a test of both their chins, I would imagine. And, if the grappling is mixed in, we could see some interesting exchanges there as well. So I definitely think that could be a valuable proposition at plus 110.
Yeah,
All right,
especially at
man.
plus money, it's hard to pass up on.
Absolutely. Next up, we've got the better Basharat brother, Farid Basharat, taking on Chris Gutierrez El Guapo. And, Gutierrez is a guy with a lot of UFC experience, a lot of UFC back class here, but he's also 34 years of age. And, the book has been out on, this guy can be taken down. I think it was the Song Yadong main event that was just absolutely dire, just getting taken down, held down. Ground game did not look up to snuff in that fight. It's not like Yadong was able to just clown him either, but just easy takedowns over and over again, holding him down quite easily. And that's the kind of thing where, it makes it hard to push you forward. It makes it hard to push you towards a title fight or anything like that. So Gutierrez has kind of been languishing in the UFC. He's got a good record, but just he's going nowhere fast. He's going to be one of these gatekeeper guys. Maybe go out there, have a fun fight on a card here or there, but, kind of just a guy that falls through the cracks. And Basharat's a guy that they're trying to promote. They definitely love this kid because he's got the look. He goes out there and he's got wide variety of skills, right? He can wrestle, he could grapple, he could throw some strikes as well. So he's a well-rounded guy, an undefeated fighter as well. One of the only fighters on the roster from Afghanistan. So I think that there are some definite things to like about Farid Basharat. I've been high on his grappling from the very outset. And I think that, maybe in his last fight, people were very critical because of, Victor Hugo having some success there. I just think people underrate Victor Hugo in terms of what he's able to do. He's a very dangerous guy with the leg locks. They were like, why is Basharat not trying to shoot takedowns? I didn't expect him to go out there and shoot a lot of takedowns. I thought he'd be afraid to mess around with Victor on the ground because one mistake and, he might change your life, kind of rip your leg apart. So Victor's one of those guys, right? And, Basharat played it safe, won the exchanges on the feet, and then got the takedowns as Victor got tired like he normally does. So Victor Hugo for 10 minutes is like hell on wheels, man. He'll absolutely hurt people on the feet, and he'll also submit people. So we shouted him out on Contender. He went out there and did just that, came back and showed love in the comment section. We love Victor Hugo on this show, but we also have to keep it a buck, right? And Basharat did what he was supposed to do there. So now, he's got a tough fight, I'd say, against Gutierrez, where if this fight stays on the feet, we're going to find out exactly what his leg kick defense looks like. Gutierrez is super reliable to test your calf, to throw a lot of damaging shots there. But I just feel like Chris Gutierrez is a very known quantity and I feel like Basharat's getting better all the time. I feel like he's got probably more of the finishing upside in this fight as well, just because I expect that if he gets to the top position, he could dominate. He could maybe be a little bit more aggressive trying to pass than Song Yadong. I feel like Song kept it basic, right? Simple basics, take him down, hold him down. I feel like Basharat kind of knows how to go to that next stage of, all right, let's introduce my passing. Let's get to the next level. Let's look for some ground and pound on top to break him down. And I feel like Gutierrez, maybe 10 years ago, has a little bit more spry, a little bit more willingness to try and work up 100 times. And I just don't know that he's got it in that way anymore to want to do that, to want to have that kind of fight. So respect both guys. Like I think Gutierrez has earned his spot in the UFC, tough guy, but I think Basharat, it's his time now. What do you think about this one, Wiz?
Yeah, I think this one's pretty straightforward. I think Basharat's going to be able to land the takedowns here over and over, and Gutierrez is going to find himself on his back more often than not throughout this fight. I think it's going to be the issue with his game is, yes, he has the leg kicks. That's his strong suit, but that's it. He gives up a lot of takedowns because his game is just naked leg kicks. And Basharat is a very strong wrestler. So once he gets taken down, he doesn't really try to work back up either. And Basharat's top game is phenomenal. I don't see how this fight goes any way else except for a Basharat decision. Because yes, he is a dominant wrestler and he, has that strong position, but does not really look for submissions all that often. So for me, I really think that it's a decision over maybe a ground and pound or submission finish. Very straightforward. I don't think this is going to be a fun fight to watch because we kind of know what Farid's game kind of is and what he goes out there and looks to do. But it's a fight. So yeah, give me Basharat by decision.
Fair play, my man. I will note Farid had a submission attempt against Taylor Lapilus, and he had a submission finish against Clayton Rodriguez. Clayton kind of turned out to be a little bit of a bust at the UFC level, with all due respect. And, Taylor Lapilus, to get a submission attempt off against that guy, I do think is kind of impressive. And I will note the other thing is just that, Victor Hugo attempted a sub against him. Damon Blackshear attempted a sub against him. Alan Bigoso attempted a sub against him. So he's actually fought some talented grapplers along the way, guys that were more than happy to mix it up on the ground. Blackshear, black belt. But then you look at like Gutierrez, he got 10-8'd by flyweight Cody Durden. You gotta be a little bit worried, I would say, if he's able to hold on defensively. Like some of these guys, I just think have let him off the hook. He knows what to do, right? He's not a jiu-jitsu, nonce. He doesn't not know what he's doing. But I just feel like Farid is going to be a couple steps ahead of him on the mat. So should be an interesting one, man. I agree, though. Takedowns should be coming for Farid, and I'll be looking maybe at a takedown ladder type of situation. The books will probably be hip to it.
Yeah.
I'll at least take a look. My man.
That's the one.
My man. So maybe Farid sub 3, round 3 decision, Farid takedown ladder, a couple different ways to look at it. Next up, my man, we've got the resurgent Edmund Shabazian. He's taking on the fallen off a cliff Andre Muniz. And this is a fight where timing's everything in mixed martial arts, my man. We could send it over to you first. How do you feel about this one? I feel like Edmund's been showing a little bit of a better product lately.
Yeah, I'm going to be very honest. I'm very biased here. Edmund is someone that I've been in the training room with, and I think he is a phenomenal grappler, along with a phenomenal striker who presents a powerful offensive striking game. And when he's on his A game, he goes out there and he finishes the fights in the first round. And I think that's what happens here. I think Andre Muniz has taken not just one, but a couple steps back in his career, has shown to lack the durability. And every time he gets touched, he almost gets zapped. And the last time out, when he got finished against Ikram, that was a scary one. It was laid out cold. So I think Edmund, if he lands clean on him, I think he can do the same thing. And on the mat, if Andre Muniz does land a takedown, I think Edmund has trained a lot and has put in a lot of hours in there with Jason Manley and the crew uh, to counter any position that Muniz will put him in potentially. So for me, it's Edmund by finish here. Edmund in parlays, I think he's a very strong parlay piece here this week.
Yeah, I used to love Andre Muniz, man, as a prospect, right? When he first got to the UFC, I was like, dude, this guy's huge. He had some early knockout losses in his career, but he's a guy that, his kickboxing is serviceable, and he's so big that if he goes out there, shoots a takedown, he get on top of these guys. His armbar is sick. Belly down armbar is his best move, right? He's devastating with that. But he's a one-trick pony, guys. Like, outside those belly down arm bars, what has he accomplished in the UFC? A lot of not very good things. He had a lot of back control against Uriah Hall. Hats off to him for that. I think I had a submission parlay with like him and Jalen Turner and somebody else. I'd have to go back and look at the card to know who it was. But the guys that were like plus 9XX, they hit. And then Andre Muniz minus 120 to sub Uriah Hall didn't effing hit. I couldn't believe what I was watching. But you just see, this is the kind of guy, he's got a great skill set, but at 35, I think that he's a little bit slow. I think that he is not very durable. And he also is a guy that slows down really bad. And if you were looking for like one attribute to beat Edmund Shabazian, it would be durability and cardio. And like the fact that Shabazian didn't finish Petrosky is like mildly alarming to me, because it's like, wait, what happened? Is this guy like not a violent finisher anymore? But I also think that he just was showing a lot of respect there for like, hey, if this guy gets me down, it could be a problem. That's the one fear I have coming into this one is like, if he's just like afraid of touching Muniz, like if I touch him, I'll get burned. Like I feel like he might poke and prod and kind of be very hesitant. But I feel like Edmund's cardio will hold up better than Muniz in this fight. I feel like he is much more comfortable on the feet. So by default, like unless Muniz is getting takedowns here, I think he's going to feel very, very out of sorts. So I don't think Muniz is like dead letter, a very good grappler. If they get top position once, they could change the fight. Edmund Shabazian against GM3, he basically beat the ever-loving shit out of GM3, then got a tiny bit tired. GM3 got a takedown, and he was like, I don't have it anymore, Chief, and just gave it up. So there's definitely been times where Edmund like loses a fight that he was clearly winning. That's scary. But in a 3-round contest against a guy that also has cardio problems and is much more fragile and not as athletic in any way, I feel like I got to go with Edmund here. So he's my pick. And the other thing I'll note, guys, again, when you talk about what's the most likely outcome, this is not the most likely outcome at all. But when I talk about long shots, I always just try and give you guys a long shot and then give you my reason why. Edmund Shabazian has attempted more than one sub in the UFC. Andre Muniz has basically shown like if he gets tired enough, he'll tap, he'll give up top position to Paul Craig, like things that are really, really alarming, right? So just like Edmund Shabazian, if he has just a little bit better cardio than this guy, the submission prop is 25-1. The fight not to go the distance is minus 400. They're saying like no chance this goes the distance, right? But Edmund, there's no way he could submit it. I'm just like, I'd rather look at that Edmund by like ITD and then put a small wager on 25-1. It's like, how wrong could you be? If Edmund's going to beat his ass like we think, like, by the way, a club and sub, somebody's gotten hurt. Doesn't matter what black belt you have. You get rocked, you're out of your mind. You go to shoot a shitty takedown, put your head in the hole. Edmund's got a tight guillotine squeeze. So I just think that could be, the kind of prop that, a lot of people bust a parlay or something on the KO. But I think the most likely outcome by far is the KO. So I'll acknowledge that up front. Like ITD, I think is safer. That's the only thing. Jourdain, I saw a couple people get burnt with the Jourdain KO on Contender Series. I noted the ITD. It was a 50-cent gap. So again, you're giving up a little bit, but it's like, but what if, right? And it's just like you got to expect it in the modern UFC. If a guy has an opportunity to finish, they're going to try and take it. It doesn't matter if it's a KO or a sub. So if you can get the coverage and it's a similar price, just something to consider. Anything you want to add here, buddy?
No, not really. To be honest, I do like the submission angle. Now that you mention it, because he has been training a lot with Jason Manley, as I mentioned, and the boys there, and all the guys in that crew have been getting submission wins. So watch out, because that's that. The more I think of it, the more it makes sense.
25-1. How wrong could you be? The refuge of an underdog better right there. I love it.
Also, I'm just gonna go out on a limb and start with this next one, because I feel like we can just sum this up in one quick sentence and that'll be it. I feel like there's just one thing we can really say. Like, Liam, did Tristan Vines, like, was he involved with Diddy, or like what happened? Like, was he, instead of the death sentence, are they giving him Atiba Gautier? Like, what's going on? This is not fair. Atiba Gautier is gonna put a hole through this guy's face. It's not gonna be. Oh, this is gonna be bad for Tristan Vines. I
Dude,
feel
you
like
remember the platform Vine, right?
yeah, I
6-second
do.
video. I think we're gonna get the same thing here. Atiba Gautier, 6-second video.
Yeah,
It's gonna be over.
under half a second. Yeah, I think this is like maybe first punch type shit. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Atiba by KO. Whoa, hot take.
I mean, listen, if Vines goes out there and takes him down, like, you're gonna have to just anoint this guy an American hero, right? You're
I
gonna
think
have to go out there. We're gonna have to pick him up on our shoulders, carry him around, and that's fine. But I just don't think it's gonna happen. I think Gautier, too athletic, too big, right? Tristan Vines, a typical welterweight. Now he's got to fight the biggest middleweight. Like, bad
brother. I
ideas
think
all around. And he's also been getting knocked out in like devastating fashion, guys. If you go back and look at some of the footage, real bad. So again, shout out to Tristan Vines, gangster, for being willing to step up and take the fight. But me and Wiz agree that Gautier is going to send this guy just south of Hades.
I think even if he takes him down, I think Gautier can knock him out off his back. I think it's that bad.
He could do the Kevin Holland versus Jacare Souza bit where he's just laying on his back throwing punches and sends him home. Yeah, I could definitely see that, man. Atiba Gautier, that kind of athlete, 8-1 as a pro, and Tristan Vines on the other side, 10-3 with a bunch of losses via knockout, and also I think knocked out once as an amateur as well. You just don't want to fight Gautier if you've been knocked out like 4 times already.
I feel so bad for him. Like, his manager must hate him. Like, what is going on? This is not fair.
No, dude, it's like Vicente Luque fighting what's his name, Jalen Turner, right? They were like, hey, Jalen, you want to get into the UFC, don't you, kid? You got to go out there and fight the welterweight assassin, Vicente Luque. Have fun with that. So anything to get your foot in the door of the UFC, and that's what Tristan Vines is doing here. I think he's going to get more than he bargained for, and hopefully he just gets a second fight on his contract.
He was probably so
And
hey, Tristan, we got you a fight in the UFC. He's like, yeah, let's fucking go. Against who? He's like, Atiba Gautier. His face just goes blank. Like,
dude, actually, now I have to say, do you remember that video of Nate Diaz and freaking what's his name, Nick Maximoff standing there? I got the Nate Diaz shirt on. That's what reminded me.
yeah,
he's talking about Chimaev, and he's like, "Hey, bro, you have only been in the UFC like this long. Like, you should be talking about my boy." And you should see Maximoff's like, all the blood in his face. And he's like, "Why are you trying to sign me up for a Chimaev fight, bro? Don't do that to me. I thought we were friends." And that I think is what Tristan Vines is realizing. He's like, I'm in the UFC against this guy. Then he starts looking up the footage. He's like, it's gonna be a long week. All right. Next up, my man, we got the main card opener. We got Joe Pyfer. Did you hear what he was saying at the media day, my man? Just absolute red flag behavior from what was it? Body Cam Joe, I think he called himself. Jeez Louise, this guy is off the rails. Some of the worst PR in the history of the sport. You guys can just watch this guy go up his Q score, just tumbling right down as people learned exactly who he is. But ultimately, man, he's got a big opportunity here on the main card. Abus Magomed across from him, guy who's been finished sometimes, guy who's been in some tough fights as well. And even some of these fights that he wins, it's not without getting a couple cuts and bruises and scratches along the way. So how do you see this one going down, my man, in the middleweight division? We'll have you kick us off.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not really a fan of either guy here. I don't like either guy's game. Abus Magomedov, someone who early on in his career I was actually excited for, showed really good striking, and was thought to be a powerful finisher. And, that kind of faded away into him getting touched up on the feet and getting hurt in some spots. Then to him using his grappling and taking fights down to the ground to avoid that happening. He's not going to be able to do that here against Joe Pyfer because Pyfer's ground game is pretty legit. And I think Pyfer is going to be able to negate some of the stuff that Magomedov wants to do on the feet. But I think Pyfer is not really going to be able to land too much, first of all, because it's the reach. He's at a 3-inch reach disadvantage here. And Joe Pyfer's striking isn't really that good, to say the least. Yeah, he has power and he's knocked a lot of people out, but his striking skill is pretty low, in my opinion. So I really think that Abus Magomedov on the feet is going to have the advantage technically. So for me, I think it's dog or pass here, but I'm not advocating for a bet on Abus Magomedov here just for the sole reason that I think Joe Pyfer, once he realizes that this fight is, not his to take on the feet, he's going to take this fight down to the ground and choke Abus Magomedov out potentially. And if that does happen, and we do see the fight go to the ground early, then yeah, Pyfer gets the finish. So for me, maybe the under is a good look. I have to do some more tape.
Yeah, I don't like Joe Pyfer, right? But I respect Joe Pyfer as a fighter. And I think that when you just look at like the way that these two guys match up, I don't love this fight for Abus Magomedov. He's 35 years of age. At the best of times, he was not very durable, right? Like he's been hurt, he's been cracked a little bit. That's kind of been the one downside to him. He's a dangerous guy at his best. The front kick up the middle, killed Dustin Stoltzfus in the first round. Like there's been some nice things about his game. But you look at, he's been submitted a few times. It's been a while, right? But, we definitely saw him make some mistakes trying to grapple with Sean Strickland, like took him down and then had access to the back and fell off the back and like just did some things kind of amateurishly and gassed out really quick in that fight as well. Against Bruno, they kind of went back and forth a little bit. They were having some moments. They were having some exchanges. And Bruno is way smaller than Abus Magomedov, like way, way smaller. And Bruno's good. I've always been a Bruno respecter. But he's also a wild man, and he takes a lot of risks, and he kind of gasses out himself because he's fighting up a weight class in terms of, like, every guy he fights is bigger than he is. Joe Pyfer is huge, right? Like, he's a big man. He's a strong guy in middleweight. And, when I look at this fight, like, I see Joe Pyfer being the guy who's going to be difficult for Abus to take down, unlike some of these other guys, like that he's been able to bully around the cage and take him down when he needs to and cage push. I think it's going to be a lot harder to do that against Pyfer because of the physicality and because Pyfer's kind of just like a bull, like he'll just try and like rip you off of him type of thing. Like I don't think he'll settle in those positions. I think he's kind of an ego fighter. And I think that on the feet, like both guys could land. I just think the difference is Pyfer could take a better shot and probably can give a better shot as well than Abus. So I think he's the harder hitter. I think he's a little bit more durable. I think he's probably as likely to get a takedown, because I could just see Abus getting horsed to the ground, like out physicaled by a guy who's a little bit lower to the ground, but also very strong. Interesting from Tristan. Joe turned down Abus one time already, though, while Abus never says no. It's interesting, though. I did hear, in the Pyfer Media Day, he had basically said, I took this fight because people are saying I ducked this guy and, like, I want to show, like, I don't give a shit who this guy is, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of do believe, like, Pyfer's fought Jack Hermanson and guys who are, in the upper echelon. And maybe Jack isn't as scary. A 5-round fight against Jack Hermanson, a guy with great cardio, a guy that has dangerous submissions, a guy that can fight you for 25 full minutes. Like, there wasn't anything easy about that fight, and he went the full 25, even though he was getting beat up, even though he was getting tired. So I feel like Pyfer's kind of shown he's a tough guy that you're going to have to, like, get him out of there. And I think Pyfer's shown more ability to get somebody out of there at the UFC level. So Michel Pereira, like the ghost of Michel Pereira, I think would have gotten absolutely starched by Joe Pyfer. Look at what happened to Michelle Pereira when he fought Kyle Dawkins, right? Kyle Dawkins came in there with aggressive energy, and he put him down in the first round when he was an underdog, right? So I just think that Abus is a guy that's got, a different level of ability for 7.5 minutes than 15 minutes. And I think that Joe Pyfer probably has 10 good minutes in him. So for those reasons, combined with the fact that I think he just hits a little harder and more durable, give me Pyfer to win the fight and maybe even finish Magomed off as well. He's been on a nice run, right? 3-fight win streak. I do feel like it's a little bit of the right matchmaking at the right time. I don't think he's headed for a title fight. The Sean Strickland fight told me a lot, and not a lot of guys get finished by Sean Strickland, but not a lot of guys gas out against him that quickly either. Not a lot of guys get brutalized by him on the feet like that. Like him and Brendan Allen just have that in common. They shake hands on that. But, Sean Strickland normally has to pick you apart for 5, and he just broke him down very, very quick. And I think Pyfer hits like a truck. So wrong guy to get hit by a bunch of times, Anything you want to add here, or should we move to the next one, my brother?
No, let's move to the next one. I feel like this one we broke down pretty well. It seems like it's a straightforward fight for Pyfer if he wants it onto the ground and on the feet. If he lands clean, he can also potentially knock him out.
Love it. So we are going with the Pyfer side for that one. Next up, we got Josh Emmett, the newly trained by TJ Dillashaw, Josh Emmett. I don't know if you saw that as well.
Out here.
Which probably means he's been getting his supplementation up. He's 40 years of age, wants to make sure he's ready to go. He got the right doctor involved, Dr. TJ. And, you look at Yusuf Zalal on the other side. I had basically called him out as I thought he was a prospect to watch when I was first getting into the content space, when I was first getting into and he went on this losing streak and he gets cut from the UFC. And I was like, damn, am I just bad at this? I thought Yusuf Zalal was a good fighter, man. And then he goes on a run on the regional scene. He comes back and he's been beating everybody since, right? So Yusuf Zalal was who I thought he was. He just fought Ilia Topuria and these guys when it was the wrong guy at the wrong time. But now I feel like he's matured, into a more physical guy than he used to be, right? Like he used to just get thrown around by guys, and he kind of was a little lackadaisical in the cage and didn't take it all that serious. And now I feel like Yusuf Zalal is a lot more dialed out there. Now, that Calvin Kattar performance, I think everybody was disappointed by that, right? Yusuf has been a really consistent finisher throughout his career. In the UFC, when he first got here, that kind of eluded him, right? He was getting his feet wet. He was looking for ways to finish guys. But I'll remind people, he had Damon Blackshear on skates in round 3. The entire duration of that round, just could not put the finishing touches on that one. When he dropped down to bantamweight, that one went to a draw. And then you look at, other fights that he had. Ilia Topuria, Ilia was kind of gassing out a little bit in the 3rd round. He took that fight on short notice. He spent a lot of energy trying to submit Zalal, right? He put him in the Dar series. He put him in the front headlock series. He rolled around all with him, and Zalal just didn't quit, man. You got to kill Yusuf Zalal to get him out of there. And Josh Emmett is a good candidate for guys that can do that, right? But at 40 years of age, I think the speed's going to be a factor for Yusuf. I think that Yusuf Zalal can finish him on the mat. I just think he's a much better grappler than Josh Emmett. I think that Josh Emmett is a guy that, especially if you can hurt him first, you can submit this guy. I truly believe that. It's just that you got to kind of get some doubt in his mind. You got to get a little bit of that physicality out of him first, right? Because he is an explosive guy. It's going to be hard to hold him down. The other thing is Zalal is a very good back taker. So I think that if he's able to get his back, that could be the round. That could be the fight. I think that would be a huge problem for Josh Emmett. So all of which is to say, the money line for me does feel big here. At plus 400, Josh Emmett can nuke anybody. He's shown that. He went out there and absolutely crushed Bryce Mitchell on the feet. Other guys have not been able to do that, right? Even guys that have been able to beat him, crushed him on the feet, put him in the hospital, So Emmett's that guy. And he's also a guy that can go out there and eke out a close decision, right? Just power, coming forward, optics, those kind of things work in his favor. But when I look at the guys that have been beating Josh Emmett, it's guys that are a little bit younger. It's guys that are a little bit more spry, guys that are a little bit more athletic, guys that can kick. And I kind of just think Zalal checks a lot of the right boxes. I don't like a guy who fights a whole fight in reverse, and Zalal does that sometimes. But Could I see him knocking out Josh Emmett with an intercepting knee? Yes. Could I see him hurt? Which, by the way, I said the same thing for Yair, and Yair did everything but knock Josh Emmett, right? He submitted him after hurting him badly twice, right? So when you look at how Zalal fights, like he puts those knees up the middle, he throws those knees to the body, to the head. He can, express that. He can also box a little bit. He could go to the front headlock series if he needs to. He's got that great back take. Like, I just think that there's a lot of different ways Yusuf Zalal could potentially finish this fight. And if Josh Emmett's going to win this fight, I think he probably has to knock Yusuf Zalal out or push him back for 15 minutes and chase him around. So like a close decision that, Emmett's going to struggle to land punches, but like push the guy backwards and walk him forward, or he needs to knock him out. And I believe that you have a pretty generous price tag on the fight not to go the distance. Let me check that. So right now, guys, Emmett is plus 400 on the money line. That's over at Caesars, which I do think is quite big. But then let's see the fight not to go the distance. Yeah, this is plus 200 for the fight not to go the distance. And Josh Emmett is one of the most prolific power punchers in the history of this division. He's also 40, which means that guys that are 40 years of age are much more likely to get knocked out. He's been submitted before in the UFC. Like Yusuf Zalal definitely has submission chops. And by the way, I always like to listen to a guy's interview, right? If the guy says like, hey, just beating Josh Emmett would change my life. Okay. He said, finishing Josh Emmett is the thing that would get me into the title talk. It's the thing that could get me onto those conversations that I'm not in right now, that I want to be in, right? He's a young man looking for his spot. Josh Emmett already saw the mountaintop. It's not for him. He's not going back there. So now Josh Emmett, what exactly is he fighting for? I guess to get a title fight, but he's 40. And there's very few and far between Cinderella stories at 145 pounds. He's already been a miracle of winning all these fights up to this point. He's taken hellacious beating after hellacious beating. I think at any point his chin could give out. I think his body has always been a place that you can hurt him. And I think that, think about Jeremy Stevens knocked this guy dead unconscious. Like how many years ago? Like broke his face and people thought he'd never be the same guy then. And he's already had all these resurgences and done these things. He took a ass whooping from Lerone Murphy. He took an ass whooping from Ilia Topuria, one that is like historic in terms of scoring metrics, right? I think it was 50-43. So I think you got to respect Josh Emmett. You got to respect the power. But again, would I be stunned if the plus 200 cash is here? We just saw Dana White not sign somebody on Contender. For what reason? Because he didn't finish and he's minus 700. Yusuf Zalal is a big favorite here. Hey, kid, you want the shots? You want to move up in your career? You need to not only win this fight, you need to finish Josh Emmett. You need to take a couple risks to do that. I think that the fight not to go is an interesting way to look here. Plus 200. What do you think, my man?
Great breakdown, Liam. This fight is pretty compelling. We have Yusuf Zalal, who, yes, is really looking to get this win to propel him into, title contention potentially. And Josh Emmett, someone who, 40 years old now, on the tail end of his career, but physically speaking, looking like he's in the best shape of his career. And you're talking about interviews on the Zalal side. Listen to the interview on the Josh Emmett side. When he was explaining the training he's doing out here with TJ Dillashaw, and when I say out here, they're training 3 doors down from my gym, which is kind of crazy. I haven't seen them, but it's kind of cool to think. He's saying that the first 5 training sessions, he's thrown up. First 5 training sessions in a row, he's thrown up, and then he stopped after like the 5th. And that just speaks to the Dillashaw conditioning. And another fighter on this card that we'll speak about in the next fight is also from the same camp. So we can ensure that Josh Emmett's in career best shape, I would say. Now, this line is, in my opinion, very disrespectful. Is Josh Emmett going to be, compelled to fight with handcuffs on? Is that why this line is, plus 400? I have no idea. So for me, I think you only have the option of betting Josh Emmett here. It's tough to pass up on this big of a number when we know the way that Josh Emmett goes out there and looks to hurt fighters. And I think he can do it against a lot who against Cater in the third round showed that he was gassing out and he was getting bopped up on the feet. He almost got finished there too. Not the best of looks. And Emmett's gonna be there. And I wish this was a 5-round fight because that's where Emmett would have the most value, I think, in the later rounds. But yeah, I'd say dog or pass. But I do see the path where Zalal could take him down and get the back and choke him out. So unders is a great look too.
Nice, man. So yeah, I think we largely see this one the same way. Like money line side, Josh Emmett at the huge prices. But you got to go in with the expectation, hey, this guy's 40. Things could go sideways here. But just based on what we know about the two guys, based on their recent run of performances, like Calvin Kattar, guys have struggled to win a round in the UFC in the last few years, and he did win the third round against Yusuf Zalal, in most people's opinion, by just walking forward, pressuring, trying to get in this guy's face. And Yusuf was slowing down a little bit and kind of fighting the whole fight going backwards. So, yeah, I definitely think you got to be a little cognizant of hey, Yusuf Zalal has dropped some decisions being a bonehead in the UFC. The one counter narrative to my fight not to go the distance, Yusuf Zalal has never been finished before. But again, if you were to get finished for the first time in your career, guys like Josh Emmett definitely fit the bill as guys that can be the first one to knock you out. So I definitely respect both guys in this fight. And I just think Yusuf, it's his time. That's the one thing for me. I just feel like he's a little young, fresh right now. But Josh Emmett, old warhorse, man, goes out there. You know what to expect from the guy. I'll say this. TJ Dillashaw used to overtrain a little bit, and he has gotten injured and stuff in the past as a result of that. That's the one thing I fear with the TJ Dillashaw guys is I'm like, guys, learn from TJ. He can't fucking lift his arm above his head because his shoulder's so fucked up. So you just got to be a little cognizant of that as well. At 40 years of age, doing this hard conditioning program. Remember Tony Ferguson and David Goggins, the videos of him puking and everything. People are like, Tony's back. I was like, let's pump the brakes. When he fought Saul Poppy, I'm all with you. But just it's a little hard to expect these guys to keep pushing themselves at 40 years of age. And for Josh Emmett, he's already defied logic. He's a guy that looks like he's in incredible shape. So nothing but respect there. But I do think the speed of Zalal is going to be a factor here. All right, man. Maybe one of the most electric fights on, the calendar. Yuri Prochazka, Khalil Roundtree Jr., two guys that are typically very high action light heavyweights, two guys that are both extremely capable of putting their opponents away, being damaging finishers. Khalil showed off in his last fight he could fight 5 rounds if he's able to set his own pace, if he's able to go out there and dictate, But I think we've also seen, you got a guy in Yuri. He's a much younger fighter. He's got way more experience. He's the bigger guy. He definitely checks a lot of those boxes for me in terms of anthropomorphics as well as his experience level. So we'll have you start us off, my man. What do you think about this fight? Two guys that are both capable, light heavyweight contenders. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, man, this fight is very compelling too. And Khalil Roundtree is the fighter that I was referring to in the last breakdown when I mentioned that TJ Dillashaw connection, because they're training at the Santos Studio gym and out of the Santos Studio facilities here in Newport Beach. So
nice. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah, man, this is a fight between two guys that are going to go out there and look to offer chaos. And Yuri Prochazka is someone who's looking to revive his career off of a much needed win against Jamal Hill. Both guys coming off of wins against Jamal Hill, which is not really saying much. Jamal Hill is not someone who I rank very highly anymore. We see the conditioning, but we'll save that conversation for a different day. I think in this fight, Khalil Roundtree is going to be able to land the leg kicks at will, and I think he's going to be the much more sharp striker, landing more straight shots, landing the power shots here. The downfall for him is the size disadvantage, but we saw him deal with that pretty efficiently against Jamal Hill. Yuri, though, is a little bit more unpredictable with his strikes, so he does have to pay a little bit more attention when he gets up close. I do rank Khalil Roundtree's durability pretty highly now just because of the Alex Pereira fight, and we did see him tank some damage against Jamal Hill. We did see him tank some damage against, Anthony Smith did give him almost 3 solid rounds. It is Anthony Smith, I get it, but he does have some power, nonetheless. But yeah, he has to pay attention to Yuri's elbows up close. But if he can, I think he can knock Yuri out. I think this is a dogger pass spot. I've never been a fan of Yuri's style. It's very fan friendly in a way that the violence is almost guaranteed. But as a betting man, you kind of want someone who's a little bit more defensively responsible, a little bit more sound technically, and not more wide, upright, head side to side, bobbing, just, tall man defense almost. That's not going to be playing to your advantage against Khalil Roundtree. So give me Roundtree by knockout.
I bet Yuri when he fought Glover Teixeira, and it was one of the greatest sweats of my life. So have to shout out to Yuri for that. I think that when you look at a guy like Yuri, what makes him special is his intangibles almost as much as his skills. Like the guy clearly has good offense. He's very potent. He's worked on, hardening his hands and punching trees and shit. Like when he hits people, they are not fucking fans of that, right? Like people react very poorly to getting hit by Yuri, but he also gets hit, right? So that's the downside to his style. It used to be way worse. I think we could both acknowledge there were times in the Glover Teixeira fight, guys, straight up, where he's got both hands on his lead knee and his face just like sitting there and he's just taking a punch. Like he has both hands on his lead knee and he's taking a punch clean to the chin. Unbelievable visuals. But when you look at like what he's done against Rakic and these guys, Yuri Prochazka is a guy that will go into chaos, swim around in it, like be like where most people are like, fuck, this is horrible. He loves it. And then he comes out the other side and kills somebody. And like that for me is what makes him special, is his ability to go into a dangerous situation, keep his composure, and then come out the other side. And the second that you show a little sign of I'm ready to go home or I'm breaking, he will take everything from you. That is what makes Yuri special. Glover Teixeira is a better fighter than Yuri Prochazka, guys, but he got tired because he was an old man and he had been in a hard fight and he just was running out of ideas and will to keep fucking trying to hit this guy and keep beating him up and keep out grappling him. And he made a mistake and he got tired and he quit because Yuri made him quit. And Yuri's broken a lot of guys by not being that much more skilled or even not being more skilled at all, but just being a dog and willing to go to hell with guys. And I think that if you look back at Khalil Roundtree and the truth about what has like undone him in the past, it's guys that push back on Khalil, because Khalil is a freaking menace, man. Like he hits like a truck. He's a dangerous, dangerous striker. He's extremely skilled with his striking and also incredibly powerful. So that makes for a potent combination, right? You know how to throw, and when you throw, it fucking matters. Like, yeah, Khalil Roundtree is going to win fights like that. But he's had a 14-6 pro record. He's been fighting for a long time. He didn't get that active, right? Takes a fight here and there and, then has some off time. And he just hasn't been a supremely active individual. Yuri Prochazka's fought a million times, right? He's probably catching up to Khalil on UFC fights already. Like, I don't know. I'd have to go look, but like he's going to catch up to Khalil on UFC fights somehow, right? And it's just because Yuri gets after it. He's lost twice in the UFC. Both times to Poatan, Alex Pereira, right? Same guy who was the undoing of Khalil Roundtree, right? But you know who else was the undoing of Khalil Roundtree? Iwan Kutalaba, Johnny Walker. Like, when you look back at those fights, is Johnny Walker better at fighting than Khalil Roundtree? Nope, he wasn't then. He's not now. Skill for skill, Khalil dunks on him. Except that Johnny Walker had a lot of confidence at the time, and he was a big, scary man, and he came forward and tried his offense over and over, even though Khalil was scary, even though Khalil hits very hard, and he was able to get to him. And the smile on Khalil's face turned into a frown over the course of the fight. Like, you see him start off, and he's happy to be there and excited, and you just see like, man, I don't want this. This is not the fight I was expecting. This is what I wanted to see. And I feel like Yuri might get knocked out. Like, that's the downside risk I feel in this fight. But I think that Yuri is just a builder, and I think he's going to be getting into Khalil's head over the course of this fight. And I don't think Khalil wants to fight a guy like Yuri. Like, I think he can knock him out. Khalil, I think, can knock out anybody in the division. I actually thought he was poised to beat Pereira. I said that at the time. I was like, man, they're going to go out there and have a striking match. That's what Khalil wants. And Khalil gassed out in that fight, in a fight against an older guy, in a fight against a guy where, theoretically, if you were to ever win a fight as a title for Khalil Rountree, how does Khalil win a UFC light heavyweight title? He gets another pure striker, and they get to go out there and have a striking match. And he lost. And I'm just like, that for me was the peak of his career. And I feel like he'll be talking about that fight. Hey, I made it to the title fight. I got that part. I achieved that. And I feel like he can move on in his life. I feel like Yuri Prochazka right now still is hungry for that light heavyweight title. 32 years of age, still believes in himself 100%. Bigger guy. And here's the real difference maker for me, man. If Yuri goes for a takedown in this fight, I think he wins the fight. Like, can I rely on him to do that? No. Even against freaking Pereira, where every incentive structure says shoot takedowns from the opening bell like your life depends on it, he didn't do that, right? And instead, he paid the price. But when I saw against Rakic him go for that foot sweep, I was like, oh, fight's over. Because if he gets him to the ground, I've seen Rakic capitulate before. I've seen Khalil capitulate before. If Yuri gets this guy to the ground and he's on top of him, Yuri's a big man. He's an awkward guy. He's a heavy guy. The 12-6 elbows, yep, give me some of those too. I think Yuri's going to win this fight, and I think he's going to finish Khalil. I'm a big Yuri believer, maybe to a fault, right? But I've been a big respecter of his game. Finds a way to win. If I had to describe his style in a simple phrase, he finds a way to win fights. He's done it 31 times, and I think he's going to do it 32 times on Saturday night. Give me Yuri Prochazka. Any closing thoughts there, my man?
No, man, I do see the angle. That's why I'm leaning more towards the violence angle than the Roundtree side overall. So maybe do a little bit more tape before finalizing decision there.
Yeah, and I can see both guys finishing. If you had to talk about Yuri's downfall, it's his willingness to take risk against Dominic Reyes. He was arguably both knocked out and submitted and still won the fight. So he's a guy that will fight hard for your dollar, can absolutely beat anybody. But yeah, laying big chalk prices with Yuri is a sure way to sweat, right? So if you guys wanted to lose some weight, get your sweat going over the weekend, definitely go lay the Yuri ticket. But it's going to be a sweaty one. I just think that he gets the job done at the end of the day. Next up, my man. Oh, boy. That meme from Grand Theft Auto where he's like, oh, shit, here I go again. Listen, man, I got nothing but fucking respect for Merab. He's one of my favorite fighters, right? I've talked about the triumvirate of bantamweights that run this division. I've talked about New York boys. They'll teach you how to wrestle once again. I talked about Aljamain Sterling putting on for Division III wrestling. There's nothing I love more than a New York champion, a guy goes out there, Ray Longo and co. There's so much to love about these guys. But a fight's a fight, right? At the end of the day, a fight's a fight, and I know that Merab is a champion. I know that Merab's a great fighter. I've always said that. I had said that he was a great fighter before he was the champion. I thought he was the clear side against Sean O'Malley the first time they fought. But in the rematch, he comes in as a massive favorite, and I wasn't sold, right? Obviously, I was dead wrong there, right? You got to just own up, celebrate the wins, own the losses. Sean got ran through in that fight, and I said, Merab looked better, but also, it kind of just showed me like, man, Sean kind of had a better, maybe best case scenario in that first fight where he doesn't get finished and he didn't get that tired and he was able to go out there and have some moments, but his corner's telling him, just make it through the fifth round, just make it through. And I was just like, oh, bro, I can't believe this. And I think that in part, what I got wrong about the cap of that fight is the mental fortitude of Sean O'Malley, with all due respect, right? Like I thought Sean O'Malley was going to offer more resistance. And you could say that Merab was the better guy, and I would say that. But I could also say that a guy who's been doing jiu-jitsu as long as O'Malley and a guy that's been fighting as long as O'Malley doesn't get submitted with that choke unless he was ready to go home. And I think he was ready to go home, man. I think he was done. I think he realized I can't beat this guy. I think he got frustrated. I think he quit. That's what I saw. And again, he's a professional, right? He's entitled to his opinion. I'm just a guy watching from the outside. I'm entitled to my opinion. I could be dead wrong. But that's what I saw as a guy that trains jiu-jitsu, right? Like, I don't think that that choke happens if he wanted to fight harder and stay in there for longer, right? Like, that's all I'm saying, right? So again, I think that it's fair play. Like, the credit goes to Merab. He made the guy quit because he breaks people mentally. I just think Cory Sandhagen's kind of bulletproof mentally. Like, I think that when you look at the guy is very well prepared. He's a skilled fighter in all facets of the game. And I think that the thing that has undone Cory Sandhagen at times has been his complacency. You know, going out there and whether it's against Aljamain Sterling and he started off a little lethargic, he basically admitted, like, you know, I used to not get fired up for my fights, like almost intentionally, like go in there, relax. And there's some value to that. But you have to find the balance between being relaxed and being dialed. You need to be ready to compete. You need to be dialed in. But you also don't want to be like, you know, huffing and puffing and getting out of control. A controlled, dialed in fighter, I think, is the best kind of fighter. And I think that Cory Sandhagen is mixing now a focus on, all right, being ready to go from the opening bell with, let's be more aggressive out there. Let's be a dick when I'm fighting. Let's be meaner in the cage. And I think that that is necessary for a guy like Cory. Cory seems like a nice guy. You know, he seems like a guy who's very docile outside the cage. And so what does he need? He needs to turn it on and be the meanest version of Cory Sandhagen he could possibly be when he's inside the cage, because he's a really skilled guy. He knows how to fight. He knows how to hit people. He knows how to hurt people. He knows how to cut them up. He knows how to bust them open. We've seen all those things, right? Song Yadong, he's a tough guy, right? Tough customer. Going to be hard to get him out of there unless you slice him open and give them no choice, right? Unless you just leave lasting damage on his face, change his life. You know, that's the kind of thing that forces somebody to intervene. You go up there with these big knees and elbows, you can cause a lot of damage, right? When you look at Cory Sandhagen, he's done a much better job in his recent career of getting back up to his feet when he gets taken down, of disengaging from the grappling, separating, right? Getting on top, forcing guys into leg lock exchanges, ripping a guy's leg into pieces, right? Like he just did to Figgy. You know who else he did that to? TJ Dillashaw. And people will forget. Guys, he tore TJ Dillashaw's knee to pieces in that fight. And TJ had to rely on humping his leg, holding him in the rear waist cinch, like pushing him into the fence in the apex, right? Small cage, and he was able to hold on to him. I thought he lost that fight. Like, I thought TJ Dillashaw did not deserve to win that fight, but TJ got his hand raised. You know, he did just enough. In the modern scoring criteria, if it's based on damage, like, I thought the guy who was damaged was the guy whose leg was completely torn apart. I thought the guy who was damaged was the guy who was holding on for dear life, eating elbows to the face while he's holding on. Like, I just did not see, you know, the same fight that some other people saw there. And so I don't think that Cory Sandhagen's a guy that, like, you know, he's fought all the best guys, but he can never beat somebody good. It's like, for me, Cory's fought the best of the best at bantamweight for most of his career. And in these very high-level, top-level fights, he's fallen short. You know, Aljamain Sterling. By the way, that was, I think, the best version of Aljamain Sterling there ever was. Took him down instantly, choked him out, demanded his title shot, got his title. That was Aljamain Sterling at that time, right? He lost to Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar then went on to push Merab very, very hard in that title fight, right? I was there betting Merab. I said Merab won the fight. I think there's a better argument for 50-45 Merab than Umar winning the fight. But I also think a lot of the rounds were super close. Like, Merab is one of these guys that understands optics. He understands what you need to do to win a round, even when it's close, which is turn it up late, put your hands up, do something that shows I am in control. Let them know, because these judges are like goldfish. They remember the last 30 seconds. So if you give them a strong visual, take the guy down, stand up above him with your arms up, yell in his face, turn to the crowd, hype people up, that says I won the round. So in a close round with Umar, Merab does the optically right thing at the right time, and he wins the round. The guy's savvy. The guy's a big game player. There's a reason he's won all these fights. But he's got losses on his record. He's a guy that's been hurt before, even in his wins. We don't want to write a hagiography about Merab Dvalishvili. He's as good as advertised. He's a great champion. He's a deserved favorite. But minus 400 means 80% of the time he wins this fight. And I always talk about, if I think both guys are elite, hard for me to get there. Hard for me to follow you there. You know, I think Cory Sandhagen's an elite fighter, especially in this division. Even against Umar, when he lost that fight, was there one round where Umar just destroyed him and, oh my God, Cory doesn't even look like he's on this level? No, almost every round was close. They gave it to Umar. Okay, like I think that you look back and you say, man, Umar deserved to win that one. But he didn't blow Cory out of the water every round. It's like every round's close. Cory Sandhagen is out there competing position over position. And so when I look at the fight, I say Cory's a dangerous guy. He's a big guy. He's the younger guy. He's got a lot of experience, just like Merab, right? 24 fights for Merab, 23 fights for Sandhagen. He's been in the UFC a long time. He's fought a who's who, just like Merab. It's like, what does Cory Sandhagen have to do to get some respect? And I do think that this is a guy that at plus 300, is not getting much respect from the market, from the bookmakers. I think Cory Sandhagen has decided these numbers. I think the other way that I would look at this fight, I kind of touched on it with some of these other fights, there's a big price on this fight not to go the distance. And it's like, well, Cory Sandhagen's basically telling you, I'm going to go out there and try and be as aggressive as possible, take risks, be assertive, look to finish this guy. And Merab said after his last fight, I'm no longer content with just going out there and showing these guys I can decision them. I'm going to try and put them away. I'm going to break them. I'm going to make them give up. I'm going to make them quit. He's talking about if they give me Umar again, I'm going to break him in the first 90 seconds and then drag him around the octagon for the next 23. Merab's now talking that talk. You know, Merab's now feeling himself and has that championship bubble of invincibility. But I'm old enough to remember Marlon Moraes rocking his shit in the first round. I'm old enough to remember Henry Cejudo rocking his shit in the first round. And then Henry got drowned in 2 and 3. I remember, right? I remember Marlon getting broken in the second round. But I also remember Merab running away in full sprints because his face is half hanging off of him and he just got rocked badly. I remember all that. And so when I look at Sandhagen, I think he could hurt this guy. When I look at Sandhagen, he offers a weird body type that if he's getting wrestled, he might enter on legs. He might try and get tricky with Merab in ways that other guys don't, right? These other guys are like, if this guy takes me down, I just have to base back up to my hands, and he'll put you through the cycle over and over again. I think Sandhagen's at least going to offer a new set of questions for Merab Dvalishvili. And maybe Merab is the fucking, the savant. He's got the answer to every question. Maybe that's the case, right? He's the champion. He's going to be asked hard questions. But again, you're not seeing Ankalaev went out there and beat Pereira last time. He's not as big a favorite as Merab Dvalishvili in this fight, who hasn't beaten Sandhagen. And by the way, if this fight was a few years back, what do you think the lines would be, right? Like, you just look back at how were they lined against Petr Yan as comparative example. They were lined very similar against Petr Yan, right? And obviously one guy won, one guy lost. But the market basically gave him the same chance going into the fight, plus 200 or so, you know? And I bet Merab and I bet Cory Sandhagen in those fights because I'm like, man, they're elite fighters. They're in, a matchup with another elite guy. Maybe they win it. I went 1-for-1 in those fights at plus 200. Fine, right? I look at this fight. I say to myself, I bet on Merab when he was a plus money underdog against Umar, and I won. And then I faded him with Sean O'Malley when he was a plus money underdog, and I lost. I'll go back with Cory at plus 300, and we'll live with the results. It's the way I feel, man. I'm going to wait for the number to peak. I'm going to see what the best plus 3XX is on Cory Sandhagen. If there's a 4XX, great. And that's it. I'm just going to click it, hope for the best, and I believe that Cory Sandhagen might be America's best hope right now, not named Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. I mean, you start looking through some of these divisions on the men's side of things, slim pickings, right? And Cory Sandhagen going to go out there and give himself an honest chance. Let's find out. What do you think, my man?
Yeah, I think the same way, to be honest with you. I really do see the fight going in the favor of Cory Sandhagen for numerous reasons. Not to say that Merab Dvalishvili is not worthy of this favorite, price tag. I do think that he should be the favorite, but I think this line should be a little bit more towards like the minus 200s more than where it's at right now, because Cory Sandhagen, I think I've said on multiple different shows across multiple occasions till this day, top 3 all-time IQ fighters, in my opinion. This guy has really smart game when it comes to any position, whether it's in the striking or whether it's in the grappling. I think he goes out there and fights really smart. And if he can just turn up the aggression a little bit, I feel like he is destined for greatness at some point. And I've been calling for this fight for so long, and it's finally here. So I'm pretty excited for him. Merab Dvalishvili, as you mentioned, in the Marlon Moraes fight specifically, he was dead to rights. I had a huge bet on Merab Dvalishvili in that fight, and I thought, a lot of other refs would have stopped the fight. A lot of refs. And when I say a lot, I mean almost all of them would have stopped that fight. But he weaseled his way out, and he got the finish. I really think that Cory Sandhagen is going to be able to land a knee on a Merab takedown attempt, and if he eats it, cool. But I feel like those knees are going to be free. Now, if he does get taken down, I feel like Sandhagen is reliable to stay safe in the jiu-jitsu and work his way back up. But I'm not ruling it out that he can not reverse positions, because I think he can maybe present threats in the top position as well, being the taller fighter. I think if he reverses Merab from the top position and he gains top, he could fish for submissions. He could fish for Kimura attempts from the side control. I feel like he could go and try to get a crucifix position, being the taller fighter, and really pinning down the arms of Merab. I feel like that would be pretty advantageous too. So maybe a ground and pound finish for Cory Sandhagen in the third or fourth round. I think that's the prediction for me, because Merab, I think his path to victory here is, similar to all of his wins. It's, a 5-round dominant decision where he gets a lot of takedowns, which can happen. But I think Sandhagen does present threats that a lot of other fighters that he has faced have not, and in both realms, the striking and the grappling. So give me Cory Sandhagen at this big plus money spot. I feel like this is his fight to lose.
Yeah, man, he checks a lot of boxes for me. All the anthropomorphic advantages. He's got commensurate experience at the professional and UFC level. He's got dangerous skills in all positions. So for me, man, he just checks a lot of the right boxes, and it's a hard fucking fight, man. Who wants to fight Merab Dvalishvili? Nobody. He's got great cardio. He's insane. He's insanely talented, right? You got to give him a lot of respect. But at the end of the day, he's a human being, right? And human beings are fallible. They can lose. They can fall. They can fumble. They can fuck up. And he's a champion. He's got more, respect, money, and everything else than he ever had in his life. More opportunities to do other things and fuck off. And so when those kind of, influences come into your life, a guy like Merab, immigrant mentality, down to earth, so many positive attributes, right? But he's also put himself through the ringer physically and every other way in his career. And, at 34 years of age, you just don't know when the bottom's going to come out on that. I know Cory Sandhagen's 33. He looks a little bit fresher, right? He looks a little bit, a little bit more spry in terms of his approach to the game. Merab wears it, right? He's got the scar tissue everywhere. The guy is a natural fighter. And so nothing but love and respect for the New York machine. But I think Cory Sandhagen's a live underdog this weekend. So I'll always keep it a buck. And that's the way I see it. And if I'm wrong, I'll come back to the show and say, guys, I was dead fucking wrong. How do you fade Merab? I'm an idiot. But I also have to just go with my gut and my instincts. And I've always said part of betting on underdogs is being willing to look like a fool. And I think that Cory Sandhagen might make other people look foolish this weekend, right? He's capable of that too. So let's find out. Should be fun. That brings us, of course, my brother, to the main event of the evening. It shall be done again. Magomed Ankalaev, Alex Pereira. Wiz, I'm going to have you start us off with this one, but I got to just bring us very quickly to my light heavyweight futures article, and I'll show you guys a little bit more context later, but this is how it ends. The prediction for who ends the year as champion: Magomed Ankalaev plus 195 or Carlos Ulberg plus 700. Could we get one more in December? Let's find out. But in the meantime, guys, we've got Ulberg as the backup fighter coming off his big knockout win last week that we predicted on the show, might we add. Then we look at Magomed Ankalaev. I had said to people, we will scroll up quickly in the document, right? Alex Poatan Pereira, current odds, minus 120 to be the champion. What's my initial impression? Hard to favor a 37, going on 38-year-old to be champion at the end of the year. He could retire, lose the belt, or vacate to go to heavyweight, in my humble opinion. So I was selling stock on our guy Pereira before the year. And I said, if you're going to buy stock, you buy it on a guy like Ankalaev, or you buy it on a guy like Carlos Ulberg. And Wiz, how do you feel about this matchup, my man? Does Pereira have what it takes to get it back on track? Can he snub my futures article and go back there and reclaim this title? or will Magomed Ankalaev retain the belt? What do you think about this one, my man?
And everybody here knows I'm a Alex Pereira truther, always will be. This dude has inspired a lot of like what my game revolves around. So always will be a big fan of this guy and his striking and just his methodical way of entering in. Even though it looks robotic, it's so effective. Uh, but yeah, and he's fallen from grace a little bit over the past year to 2 years. Going out there and traveling the world, making these guest appearances in different promotions, making guest appearances, training elsewhere, and doing seminars, uh, traveling the world and just enjoying himself. And that's him enjoying the fruits of his labor. He's already won the belt in 2 different weight classes, and I feel like he's done what he's set out to do, and he had the goal of coming to the UFC. So all props to him and on a great career. I feel like Ankalaev is just in a better situation overall. I think he's the fighter that's a little bit more hungry. He just won the belt. He hasn't defended it yet. He wants to get the title defense. But you hear even on the Ankalaev side that he's saying he only wants 1 or 2 more fights in the division, and then he's going to move up to heavyweight as well. So this rivalry could renew itself in the heavyweight division, but that might be, them in the later stages of their career. I feel like, Ankalaev will still have the advantages there because he technically is the younger fighter by 5 years. So he still has life in his career, per se. We see these heavyweights can fight deeper on. Now, it really just depends on how prepared Alex Pereira is this time out. Because in the first fight, Alex Pereira looked like he was injured, as he was mentioning, with his hand. He only landed 13 strikes. That's not really what Alex Pereira throws. He's more of a volume striker when it comes to the power shots, and landing 13 over a 5-round period. Yeah, you're not telling me Alex Pereira is only landing 2 strikes a round. So this fight has to play out a little bit differently when it comes to the striking for him to have any chance. But it was impressive that he defended 10 takedowns, didn't get taken down once. And I did call that before the fight. I did say that he wasn't going to get taken down because his takedown defense has proven to be good. And he's shown to take his talent to other parts of the world to train with guys specifically on the takedown defense. And Ankalaev himself is not a high percentage takedown threat. It's proven on the numbers. If you pull up the UFC stats. So I say all this to say I think Ankalaev wins the fight. I think Alex Pereira has done what he needs to do in the UFC, and might be on the outs. I think he maybe has 1 or 2 more fights and maybe call it quits, but we'll see. I will still root for him on Saturday night, but I think this is Ankalaev taking him down. Even if it doesn't come in the first 2 or 3 attempts, takes him down, wins by ground and pound, and there's the fight.
I actually called Ankalaev by ground and pound the last time these guys fought, so maybe I'm just feeling burnt by that. But you know what I will say, man? This fight is about -135 or so to end inside the distance. And, I think the most likely outcome is Ankalaev by knockout. One thing I will note is that Pereira has kind of skirted death a few times in the UFC, very close to being knocked out against Adesanya, and then the bell rings, so he's saved, right? The same thing happened against Ankalaev. He's kind of had a few of these moments where he gets hurt really bad and then the bell saves him. And I just feel like the law of probabilities is he's going to get hurt with 2 minutes left in a round to get finished pretty badly. When you look at Ankalaev, he checks a lot of the boxes again for me, where he's the younger guy. He's, pretty much shown he can compete with the size of Pereira, right? That's not going to be a problem for him. He can compete with him both at distance as well as in fighting, right? Pushing him against the fence, holding him there. So I feel like Ankalaev kind of showed that he has different ways to win the fight. And I think that Pereira, he's pretty limited in how he has to win this fight. He's got to find either the calf kicks that Ankalaev kind of no-sold the first time out, or he's got to go out there and, connect with the hands and knock this guy out. And I think that's doable, right? Like maybe he could just slightly outwork him on a decision. I guess that's possible too. But when you're 38 years of age, when you're on your second career in combat, which I talk about a lot, Pereira had a two-weight championship, career in kickboxing as well. So, the moving of the weight classes, all this time spent cutting weight, all these different factors, like I feel like the guy's durability suffered from that, right? And also ballooning up in between fights and like taking time off and like you said, pissing off around the world, doing your thing, all that's fine, but it does make it harder each and every time you got to come back and cut down that weight. Jan Blachowicz gave this guy a very honest fight, and then people were telling me like, well, it counts for Jan Blachowicz against Pereira, but it doesn't count when Olberg beats Blachowicz. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like Blachowicz is just Blachowicz, right? Like I know he's a little bit older, but if he's still going to fight and get wins at this level, we got to give the credit when the other guys beat him. And it's like, I think you look at Ankalaev against Blachowicz, another tough fight, right? But if anybody won that fight, it was probably Ankalaev, right? Like he probably just won it 3-2, and it was a couple ugly visuals with the low kicks, and you got to give Blachowicz his credit as well. But I thought Ankalaev overall did the better work in that fight and probably deserved the win there. Even came back to win a late round after he got his legs completely chewed off. So I think that when I look at Ankalaev, he's a guy that's hard to finish. He's a guy that has good power. He's a guy that can mix it up a couple different ways. His submission game isn't anything to write home about, right? Like he's never even attempted a submission at the UFC level. But if I was to expect somebody to win this fight with their ground game, it would be Ankalaev. If I would expect somebody to win this fight via knockout, I think it could go either way, but I would favor Ankalaev. And I think that if it goes to decision, I favor Ankalaev to have more, control positions, more ability to win the rounds and manage them. So for me, Ankalaev's the pick. I think he gets it done again. And this time I think he finishes and gets the knockout. What do you think? Anything to add to that? Any props or anything stand out to you?
No, I do. Like you mentioned, and as I mentioned in my breakdown, I think the finish is very likely here for either guy, but more often than not, I think it's going to be a takedown and ground and pound finish for Ankalaev. So if we're looking at finishing props, or if we're thinking fight doesn't go, that minus 135 price tag, I feel like that's the proper way to look at the fight, in my opinion, if you're thinking of a bet.
I will say my guy Paul Shaughnessy on the Bookie Beatdown show was talking about Pereira decision. It's like 10-1 on ESPN bet. I do think, given what we saw last time out, that's a little bit wide. Like as somebody that expects this fight to end inside the distance, like I just think you'd probably feel good about that ticket if the fight does go the full 25 minutes, unless Ankalaev gets 3 takedowns or 5 takedowns or something. And we just don't have enough evidence to point to that, I don't think. So yeah, for me, man, like I think that I'm picking Ankalaev. I think he gets the job done. But again, we saw him go from a much more desirable price tag to a much steeper price tag. The one fight I will say that could be a sad analogy is DDP and Strickland, where the first time, it's kind of a blood and guts war. And then the second time, DDP just like broke his nose early, and then it was kind of a nothing burger. I don't really expect that with Pereira. I think Pereira would rather go out on his shield. They kind of just like fight behind a jab in this fight and, keep it on the outside. I think he's going to try and push the issue, but, Ankalaev is just hard to get out of there, right? So even if Pereira does a great job and lands a bunch, it could be one of those fights that, finds its way to the scorecards. But I think Ankalaev by KO, I was kind of surprised to see it like plus 2XX, like high plus 2XX. That for me is a little bit surprising given his money line. All right, man. That's it. That's everything, guys. UFC 320. That's the card in the books. I'm excited for this one. Lord willing, we can find some good opportunities along the way. You guys know an underdog I'll be looking at, but otherwise, I'll be looking to see if maybe I can find some props. I think that there's another dog that I want to investigate a little bit more on the money line as well before I make any decisions. But overall, man, I'm fired up about the card. I call a spade. When it's a shit card, I'll say that and just be like, guys, like we're digging through the bottom. There's real good fighters on this card. There's interesting matchups, 2 worthy title fights as well. So I think the UFC's got a great product this weekend, and I'm fired up to watch it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of talented fighters on this card, which I always say this when we have cards like this. Oh, we haven't had something like this in a long time. But if you look top to bottom, I mean, in almost every single matchup, both sides are pretty well-known fighters, I would say. And I'm looking here on the bout order. If you go from fight 7 onwards, maybe if you skip fight 9 with Tristan Vines, but with acceptance of that one, you see everything else, and it's fighters that are household names in the UFC sense, as long as you're not a casual.
Exactly, dude. For the hardcores, if you bet on this stuff week in, week out, all people that you know for the most part, should be fun fights as well. Could have some violent, undertones, especially on the prelims this week. Yuri and freaking Khalil, that could be a main event easily. So I'm fired up about this fight card, and I will have more as well this week. Lord willing, have a little bit more video late in the week. Hopefully something post weigh-in this week. So we're getting you guys early on a Wednesday. We know it's a pay-per-view fight week. Try and get it done early, but we'll have a little bit of bonus content, let's say, later on in the week as well. In the meantime, if you're looking for either one of us, all of our information down in the description box below. God bless. Good luck. Enjoy those fights. Come back next time. We're having all the same fun again. Thanks, everybody. Take care.